Okay, so let me start with an excuse. So the excuse is that Purim kind of threw off my Mishlei preparation schedule because my charusa that I usually learn Mishlei with, we did Purim stuff instead. So this is not prepared, and so we'll see where that leads. Okay, and you could blame it on that if it goes haywire. I think it should be fine. Okay, Orach l'chaim shomer Mussar v'ozev tochachas mat'eh. All right, the first part should be pretty smooth sailing. Anyone want to take a stab at the initial translation? We don't have our usual Isaac to start us off, jumping into the fray. So I'll start you off. Orach is I don't know the subtleties of the difference. I bet the Malvim talks about it, but Orach means path. So basically create like derech. Okay, so a path, l'chaim, shomer, Mussar. Anyone?
So can I take a stab at it?
Yeah, please do.
So like the path to life is like keeping Musser, like one who keeps Musser. And then one who abandons like rebuke. I'm guessing that like mate is like a negative thing, like
yes,
it's cursed or something.
It is
like
a negative
that.
thing, yeah. So to'eh, so this is confusing because there's two words. To'eh with a tet means one thing, and then to'eh with a tav means another thing. Anyone know what they mean?
Does it mean to lead astray?
Yes, it does. Okay, well, so tav ayin hey means to go astray, and mate means to lead astray. So leads astray. Okay. Now, Sarah, you did not translate Musser. So how would you translate Musser?
Yeah, that's a hard. I don't know. I always like blank
it's hard.
on Musser.
Yeah.
Like people say, what is it?
They say giving
when you're
Musser.
studying Musser, like giving Musser, like I don't know exactly, honestly, how to translate it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. We actually had this exact question this morning in our morning Mishlei here. Anyone? Rebuke is one. I'd say there's two-ish definitions. Yeah, what?
Conduct.
Conduct is good. Conduct is a little too broad. In my opinion.
This morning we had Yasser. No, isn't it the same?
Yeah, well, we had we said either rebuke or discipline. And the reason why we had rebuke or discipline is if you talk about giving rebuke or like giving Musser, then that is more like a particular act. But then if you have, for example, like I quoted down here, the opening statement of Mishlei after the author's name, L'da'as chachma u'musser, to know wisdom and Musser, l'havin im rabina. And it's weird to say to know wisdom and rebuke because this is identifying like the subject of Mishlei. So I like Musser being discipline better. And I think the Aramaic here, I think Mardusa does mean discipline, but maybe it's just a straight up translation of Musser. Okay, so fairly unambiguous translation. A path to life is one who keeps Musser, right? And I like you to say one who keeps Musser, or maybe you could say the keeping of Musser if you wanted to make it into the infinitive, or not the infinitive, into like a generic term. And one who abandons rebuke leads astray. Okay, and what's weird about it? Okay, well, it doesn't say what it leads astray, but leads astray or causes astray. So let's look at our minimalist mafarshim here. So Matus Tzion says mate is kamo toeh o mate nafshal. Okay, so it's interesting. So he says both. He says it means to go astray or to lead his soul astray. Okay, so that's interesting. So let's just say here, goes astray or leads his soul astray. So what they have in common is it sounds like there is only one person going astray. It's the guy. I don't know what guy, but like either he's going astray or he's making himself go astray. And again, this is all coming from this mem here. I don't know my grammar well enough to say like what the form of the thing is. Okay, so that's Mitzvah. Sadigon has a very similar translation for the first half. Shvil hachaim hi shmiras Musser. So he does do it the way that Sarah initially translated it. The path of life is the keeping of Musser. Oh, that's one thing, by the way, which we should preserve here. So shomer can either mean keep, or what are the other two meanings?
Guard or watch.
Guard or watch. Okay, one who keeps, guards, or watches Musser. Okay, good. So that is another ambiguity. So Sadiq doesn't weigh in on that, but he just says the keeping, guarding, or watching of Musser. And then the Targum, I think it's just I think it's just a straight translation. So I was saying this morning, my policy with the Targum is if I know the Aramaic and I'm not feeling lazy, if I know the Aramaic, I'll say it. If I don't know the Aramaic and I'm feeling motivated, I'll look it up. But if not, then I just delete it. So that's what I'm going to do tonight because I'm feeling really tired tonight. Okay, so then Art Scroll says, to heed discipline, meaning like to listen to discipline, is a path to life. But one who abandons reproof goes astray. Reproof is just the English word for Tochachah. Okay, fine. So this is not significantly different, so I'll delete it. Living Knox says the path of life is the observance of moral discipline. So you see they go there with a more broad meaning. The one who forsakes rebuke goes astray. Okay, fine. That's that. I guess they said observes, which you could put in there also. Let's say observes. Okay. And then Alter says the path for life, one who observes reproof, but who forsakes rebuke leads astray. So he does say that the Lamed is 4. Okay, so this is, I guess we do have more ambiguities than I initially thought here. So if we put it all together here, we have, let's just delete things and make them line up here. Okay, so we have here, this is good enough. Okay, Orach L'chaim, a path to life or path for life. Shomer Musser is one who keeps, guards, or watches, or observes Musser, or is the keeping of Musser. And Musser is rebuke or discipline. And one who abandons rebuke leads astray. Okay. What are the questions?
What's the difference between Musser and Tochachah?
Okay, so what is the difference? Why did I bold it? Hold on. What is the difference between Musser and Tochachah? And again, we're asking this question because it is a question, but we are also keeping in mind that it just might be synonyms. Okay, so if there's a difference, then we'll define it. But if there's not a difference, then we won't lose sleep.
Well, I mean, even if it's synonyms, like why use one or why use
because
one?
To make things interesting. No, that's the real answer. Because
I know.
That's actually the answer, right? Yeah, it's boring to read, and it's not as memorable if you just use the same word.
This is why I became a math major.
That was a non sequitur. What? I don't get it.
I can't stand the English language. Like why?
Oh, okay.
Words I understand.
Yep.
Okay,
I mean,
maybe
this
like
is the English language, but
I was thinking like I think I know the answer, but like what does it mean when it says being led astray? Like it doesn't specify. Like what could that mean?
Okay, good. So what does it mean to go or be led lead astray? And then I guess included in that is who is being led astray, and then how, which is just breaking it down to smaller questions. Yeah. Okay, good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't really understand like the syntax. That's a good word of the first.
Yeah. AP English word.
AP English. Yeah. Bringing it back.
Yeah.
I don't get the first half of it. Like, what does that mean? Like, a path for life is one. Like, why isn't it more like if you observe Musser and whatever, then?
Okay, good. So I think this is why Sadiq changed it to the keeping of Musser, which again, so in Hebrew, just to get this clear here. So in Hebrew, the keeping of Musser would be shmiras Musser, and that makes sense syntactically. That's another good word, which is related to syntax. The keeping of Musser is a path to life. But if you say one who keeps Musser is a path of life, that doesn't make sense because you are not a path. One who keeps Musser follows a path of life. Like you have to add a word there, So yeah. So I'm just going to say in general terms here. Whereas the second half does make sense. One who abandons rebuke leads astray. But the first, okay, so what's up with the weird syntax of the first half? And we'll leave it at that because that's how we're experiencing the question. Okay. Good call.
Can you possibly add to that question, or it might be another one about why you use the term shomer? Why not just say if he understands the Musser, or if he understands what's the the discipline in living life? Why specifically guard. It's almost like you're acting on it. I don't know.
Okay, so what does it mean? What does shmiras Musser mean? Okay, and then related to that, as you said, why not use a more
Abstract idea of it. Like
no, I was gonna say a more normal sounding. Like, why not use a more normal sounding term? Like for example, when you're talking about Musser as rebuke, then you usually say like shomea Tochachah or like makabel Tochachah, like to accept
Right,
certain words,
yeah.
So why not use a more normal term like acceptance of rebuke?
Yeah,
or,
and it also sounds very obvious too.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we'll add the obvious question also. So the first half sounds obvious. Okay, we'll just add that question. Okay, and then there's one more question also in what you said, I think. Shiur Musser.
What I said?
Maybe maybe I or I projected into it. I'm just thinking through what you said. Shomer Musser Oze. Oh no, I know what it was. I was gonna say also. I want to put your question in there from before. That's what I was thinking of. Oh, sorry, no, I did that already. No, what was another thing? Something else went into my mind for a second, but I don't know what it is. Yeah. Okay. What else?
2 questions.
Yeah.
One is about like the syntax. You mentioned that the second half makes sense, but if we look at it as leading himself astray, then that seems a little bizarre, no? To say one leads themselves.
Right. Okay, good. So we'll ask it on that. Okay, so if actually, you know what? I'm gonna fold it into the second question. So let me change the order here. So what does it mean to go or lead astray? Who's being led astray? And if it's himself, like Mitsuda Sion said, why express that in such a weird way, right? Like leading, like you wouldn't say, for example, you say I walked to school. You don't say I walked myself to school. Like, yeah, you did walk yourself to school, but you don't say that. No one says that. So yeah, leading yourself astray.
And then second question was, didn't we, and this could be totally misremembering, but didn't we have a pasuk that talked about accepting rebuke or advice or something quite similar?
Let's check the records. And by the records, I mean the Tanakh. And if we see it, we're going to shield our eyes until we think about this pasuk on its own. All right, let's see here. We had this is pasuk. This is chapter 1. I want to go to chapter 10. Okay, so let's work our way backwards. Nope. Rebuke. Am I missing it? It's possible that we had. Oh yeah. Is this what you're thinking of? That on the lips of the understanding person is found wisdom, but a rod to the back of the fools? Because we interpreted that as referring to rebuke.
Maybe. I remember talking about like not accepting people's advice would lead to bad things. Maybe it was an extrapolation and not like a translation.
Yeah, could be. All right. So either way, we'll maybe when we go through the idea, it'll jog your memory, but we'll work on this one now first. Okay. Okay. I think this is this it, or are there other questions? I feel like we got all the word-based questions.
Can we discuss what it means by a path to life? Like, is that a purpose in life?
Oh, yes. That is a question we did not list, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So we did not list all the questions. What does orach l'chaim mean? Is it 2 or 4? What is the chaim? Chaim. Chaim. What is chaim in this context? Okay, good. Okay, good. So that's good. And then Hadassah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like I was just wondering, is there like a different connotation when you use the word orach versus like derech or something?
Yeah. So we'll add that here also. Does You know what, I'm going to do this just to acknowledge that these are like Malbim questions. Again, I'm not Malbim shaming, but you know, it's not my not high on the priority list, especially because we were speculating here. So is there a difference? Is there a different denotation or connotation of orach versus derech? Yeah, and it's funny because Saidigon translated to shvil, which is a completely different Hebrew word, which also means path, like the shvil hazav. So, yeah.
Wait, I also had a question. I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah, I also have one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just gonna say, is the second half even true? Because I just feel like is that even necessarily like a true idea? Because I feel like there's a lot of time where, you know, advice isn't necessarily, or rebuke isn't necessarily good.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the question is, what are the? I mean, I'm gonna broaden the question a little bit here, okay? Which is because the way you're saying it, Rivki, is that like a lot of times rebuke isn't good, but that would apply to the first half also, right? Like if regarding bad rebuke, then yeah. So what are the I guess parameters of? Oh, you know, Zach, you are reminding me of it now. There was something that we did about this. Oh, I know what it was. It was Chacham Lev Yikach Mitzvos, I think, maybe, that the wise of heart will seize commandments. And that was about how to relate to commandments.
Yeah.
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 I remember we made a similar point there of like, we asked the question, is this talking about God's commandments, Shlomo's commandments, or like commandments in general? And we learned one of the possibilities we did is it's talking about how you relate to guidelines and rules in general, you know? So here, I guess Rivki's question is like, I'm just gonna say, what are the parameters of this pasuk? For example, is this about all Musser and Tochachah? Meaning, would this apply even to like less than ideal Musser and Tochachah? You know, or is it only applying to good Musser and Tochachah?
What qualifies as Musser?
Yeah. What qualifies as Musser?
No, but I was also just thinking, like, just to, you know, I guess like further the question even more, that like I feel like it really just depending on the environment that you're in. Like if you're in North Korea, like I just feel like if the government is telling, you know what I mean? Like it really just depends where you are, I feel like.
Well, it depends on the content of it, right?
I
Not
think the
where you are.
also the environment that you're in. Like I just feel like
Why are you going to environment?
Huh?
What's making you go to environment as the factor?
I guess like when I say environment, I really mean like your social, like
the context.
Yeah, exactly.
Context, I would agree with, yeah. Because environment is like a very specific aspect of the context. So I wasn't sure
that's
what you
was trying to say. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm just rearranging the questions a little bit. I'm saying the primary question here is what is the meaning of Musser and Tochachah, right? And then what is the difference between Musser and Tochachah? And then I guess let's classify this under here also. Is this about all Musser and Tochachah? And then I like the is this true being a separate question. This is how my mind is seeing it. Yeah. And then I also want to classify this minor question under that one. What does Orach L'chaim mean? And then what's the difference between Orach and the Derech? Okay. The question I had is the parallel question to Ariel's question of Ozev Tochachas. Okay, what does Ozev Tochachas mean? Okay, meaning that's also not a very common thing. Like if I rebuke you and you did the opposite of listening to it, we would say you you didn't listen to it, you know, or you didn't follow it. Abandon or forsake is like sounds more extreme, you know. So why not use a more normal term like reject or not follow? You know, if we're using a path analogy, then like, you know, use
ignore.
What? Say it again.
Like ignore would be
ignore, right? Ignore would be good. Yeah. Neglect.
It also kind of sounds like if you leave something, it kind of sounds like you have a prior like attachment to it.
Right. That's also true. Right. What does, let me add that. What does, yeah, right. I mean, it was like, it could mean that he was following it and then decided to stop. Whereas if he just flat out doesn't accept it, then you wouldn't call it abandoning. So I'll just add that. Ozev implies, even though it's part of an answer, but I think it's part of a question also, implies that one had some relationship to it and then changed. Is this, what do we make of this?
What do you mean by that? He has some relationship to it.
Meaning, if we say that you like, you can't say that like, oh, they he left his car. If you say he left his car, that implies he was in his car, right?
So you're saying,
so if he left, if he abandoned the Musser, that implies that he had some sort of relationship with the Musser, that he followed it or like was shomer it or something like that, Whereas if you had a guy who just, if I just give you Musser and you just ignore it and you just never listen to it, would we call that abandoning it? You could say that like the fact that you didn't take it and you just like left it there, then that's an abandonment. But I hear the point Tamar's making.
Could you just clarify what you mean by Tochachah here in this case?
Yeah, that is our first question. What is the meaning of Tochachah?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. And just to clarify, the question is, are we talking about a particular instance of rebuke, or are we talking about a subject, the study of the subject matter of Mishlei? And just at risk of going off topic, not off topic, at risk of going into a tangent, I just want to really quickly read to you, because I don't think we've had the word Musser before in our pasukim. So I just want to quickly, wait, did we? I don't know. I'm not going to look back again. I just want to read to you my two favorite definitions of Musser. So this is in Mishlei 1:2, which again is like the first real pasuk in Mishlei. Ladas chachma u'musar l'havin im rabin. Staying with the purpose of Mishlei is to know wisdom and discipline, to understand words of understanding. We're only going to look at the first part. So Rabbeinu Yonah says, Ladas chachma u'musar, chibur Mishlei Shlomo. Shlomo composed Mishlei. Ladas mimenu chachma u'musar, to know from it wisdom and discipline. V'chachma he midas. Now again, chachma means many things in different contexts. Okay, sorry Ariel if that goes against your idea of wanting one language with one meaning. Talk about North Korea. V'chachma he midas hatzadikim. So chachma, he says in this context, means the behavior or the conduct of tzaddikim, of the righteous, and the ways of truth and righteousness that are made known and explained in this book. Okay, so basically the behaviors of the Mishlei good guys, okay, the tzaddikim. And then, but here's his definition of a Musser, who gnus harashaim v'hodas hanezek v'hahefsed hamagia mehem. So the Musser is referring to the study of literally the degradation of the evil, meaning the bad qualities of those who are evil, and making known the harm and loss that comes from them. Okay, meaning basically, Chachma is the good behaviors and their benefits, and then Musser is knowledge of the bad behaviors and their consequences. And Radak says it, in my opinion, in a clearer way. But I went to Rabbeinu Yonah because he's like the OG. Radak says, Ladas Chachma u'Musser, Ladas ha'to'eles shetasig ladam avor chachma. So what does Chachma mean here? It means to know the benefits you get from wisdom, like he goes on to say. And in Musser, Pirusho ha'onesh, this refers to the punishment. Now, this is not divine punishment. I mean, it's not like hashgacha or olam haba or based in. It's hayisurim habayim la'adam min hasikhlus. It's the afflictions that come to a person from foolishness, shehu hefech chachma, which is the opposite of chachma. So if you put this together, what do you get? You get that Musser is basically the if you're treating it as a subject matter as opposed to an act of like rebuke, it's the subject matter of studying the consequences of foolish or evil behavior, and which is one of the two subjects of Mishlei. So just want to clarify that there. Okay, now do we have all of our questions? I think we do. Okay, so let us take our thinking minute. Okay, so again, we're procedures. We're gonna have our thinking minute, and then we're first gonna hear people who don't have complete theories that explain everything. We're gonna hear people who have half-baked theories or like partial answers. Okay, so let's take our minute. Okay, who has half answers or partial answers or intuitions to express?
I have another question.
Oh, good. That's also good.
I'm getting a little tripped up on the difference between Musser and Tochachah, because it seems like now, whereas before I sort of thought they were referring to similar things, now they seem more different, and like they're talking about different things. Because Musser to me in this context seems very strong reference to subject matter, you know.
Okay.
So if you go through life, you know, trying to avoid foolish things, you know, that's good. And then the second instance where it talks about rebuke, it feels like more like a specific incident or action.
Yeah.
You know, but if you know, avoid or abandon rebuke, then you'll be led astray. Like it doesn't seem like an equal response, you know, incidents versus a subject matter.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I'm glad you articulated that, because I was gonna make an argument for both sides, for both ways to read it. But I think you actually convinced me one way. Okay, so even though you weren't arguing in one way, but so let me say like this. Okay, is the argument for, I think that you're saying for the first half that Musser is referring to the entire subject matter, is that's really a path to life. Like if you're really like studying the mistakes that you get from foolishness and you're studying evil and you're avoiding that, that's going to lead you to life, whatever we say life is, but it's probably going to lead you there, right? So that sounds like it's broad. And then the second half does not have that same broad feeling, because anything, like almost by definition, I guess, is if it's good Tochachah and you abandon it, then it's leading you astray in some way. Is that a fair assessment of what you were saying? Or you're in mute still.
Sorry, I wasn't yet giving a definition of like the exact parameters of where and when rebuke is referring to, but I sort of feel like wherever that is, it seems like it's more of an instance or an action than a subject matter.
Okay, so the argument, so I'm going to make two arguments for why it's saying it is an instance of rebuke. One is that if we say that Musser and Tochachah are both like acts of rebuke, so then the subject matter of the pasuk is much more symmetrical, you know, symmetrical and like definable. It's each half is dealing with a certain way to relate to a piece of rebuke or a piece of Musser. So that's one argument. And then the other argument is that orach and mate go together, path and then leading astray, because stray, actually let me humor me for 1 second.
Can I also ask one question while we're could he have said if he wanted to that the path of life is Musser and abandonment leads astray? Like, could he have left out the word Tochachah
he could have left
altogether?
It. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he could have done that.
Okay, so that's I'll let that percolate.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to see what the Torah dictionary says. when you click on it, because if it says wander, then I like that. Ah, there you go. Good. So it's weird they say error there. I didn't realize those two were related. But anyway, the first definition here, for the first proper definition, is wander about. 2 is of intoxication. 3 is to go astray, to ruin, to be made to wander about. So the reason why I'm pointing this out here is it corresponds to path much more than I initially realized. That orach means you're on a path, mata means you're off a path. So I feel like there is a strong thrust of symmetry in this pasuk, and saying that Musser and Tochachah definitely seems to be a particular act of rebuke. So I think the tightness and symmetry of the mashal makes it sound like Musser is also a particular rebuke. That's what I'm inclined to think.
Yeah, so I think my mind isn't 100% on board with that because of the last point I was asking you about.
Yeah,
is that he could have just, if they meant the same specific instance, then he could have just used the word once. And
so he could have, but just because he could have doesn't mean that he would. Meaning,
well, it would have been a more polished saying almost.
I don't know. I'm not sure about it because it is yeah. I mean, it's, let's put it this way: that both stylistic things are possible, and therefore I'm not going to hinge my intuition on that stylistic possibility of what he could have not written. Like that, to me, that's not a strong basis for hinging the intuition on that. It could still be a valid reading. I just don't. I'm not as, I'm not as
Gotcha. I think I'm gonna try to see if I can come up with something where they mean different things, but if I don't, then I might revert to your line of reasoning.
The dark side, that's what they call it in some circles. Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyone else have any partial answers or intuitions?
I have a half-baked answer.
Okay.
I mean, I might have 2 half-baked answers, but I don't know how to unify them.
Okay, go ahead.
So for the first half of the pasuk, maybe you could say that, one thing that was bothering me was, shomea versus shomer.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe you could say that, everyone can know like what's the right thing to do or what's not the right thing to do. It's very easy to know, that I should wake up for chakras, But now the question is, well, will you wake up for chakras?
Right.
Right. I mean, will you, in like, I don't know, like in like a business deal, will you be trustworthy? Will you not, finagle your way into getting that deal just because, you want it so bad? Meaning there's like a code of ethics that you should guard and watch. Not just understand that there's a code of ethics, but you need to observe it.
I like that intuition a lot. So let me just.
However, I feel like that's also very obvious. I just don't know. You know what I mean?
Okay, it's okay if it's obvious because it's only one half of the pasuk. Like we've seen many times that like the chiddush, the new idea emerges from the juxtaposition. So just to articulate that, so this is saying, according to Ariel, this is going beyond just obeying Musser, which would imply like a one-time thing or just like agreeing to the idea. But this is like a consistency that you adhere to it, you guard it, meaning it's the fact that you are sticking to it and not just like following it once. And again, especially if you think about it as rebuke, can we just get an English definition of rebuke, not from a dictionary, but from our minds? Like, what does it mean to rebuke someone? What will you say, just so we can have it clear?
Accountability.
That's not what rebuke means. If I say, right, I mean, that if I say like, I gave you rebuke.
Rebuke is about teaching.
Say again?
It's about teaching in order to I'm going to use the word craft, but that's not what I mean. Like craft new skills and craft appropriate behavior.
Okay, so I think that's the general category. But I think it is more specific because, for example, you wouldn't say like if you went to an art class to take lessons in painting, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm getting rebuked by Bob Ross." Like he might rebuke you in the class, but in other words, rebuke is a form of teaching, but not all teaching is rebuke. So can we say what kind of teaching rebuke is? I agree it's a form of teaching, though.
It's
because it's more about like, I feel like when you do something wrong or like,
yeah,
it's like a negative, not negative, but when you do something wrong and then you have to fix that or like purify it, you know.
Okay, good. So I'd say let's try this as a working definition. I'm going to type it out just so we can come back to it if need be. So let's working definition of rebuke. Rebuke. Let me make the screen a little bit. Okay. Rebuke equals informing someone that they are in error so that they can correct it. And I should say not just in error, showing that they are, I'm going to say, are making a mistake. And I'm saying making a mistake because I think rebuke is in the practical. It has to do with practicality and decision making. You don't say if I you know, if you thought that there were only, you know, 6 continents and I say that like, oh, there are 7, I'm not rebuking you, you know, I'm correcting you, but I'm not rebuking you, you know, so I feel like it has to manifest itself in action in some way. Okay, so going back to what Ariel was saying, listening to rebuke or heeding rebuke would be, I tell you, you know, hey, like, you know, you know, you should set an alarm so you get up for shacharis, right? So you could listen to that, but to be shomer, it means that you like do it on a consistent basis going forward and are vigilant against like things that could interfere with you keeping it. Is that what you're saying, Ariel, for that first half?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can say
right.
that. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, good. So that was one of your half-baked ideas. What's your other one?
The other half-baked idea is on the second half of the pasuk.
Mm-hmm.
It's about you know, now that you say rebuke is not accountability, I can, you know, I'm gonna say it anyway. Maybe we
okay,
can
that's fine. Yeah,
that
yeah,
out.
that's fine. You might still have a good intuition in there, even if we change the definition.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could say that, you know, someone should. I feel like to grow in any area of your life, you should have some sort of like an accountability session or like a rebuke session.
Okay.
Because it's hard because it's a very difficult thing to, you know, have. You know, when, you know, it's very challenging to have someone rebuking me or anyone. But let's say you could put that emotion aside. Let's say you could put that aside for a second.
Yeah.
And you do have that, you as an individual can grow, right? Because that rebuke ultimately will put you on the right path. Let's say, I don't know, you're like a boss of a company, right? And you really are screwing up your business and you hire someone specifically to make sure you're doing the right thing, but you just ignore him. Not only will you be putting your business astray, but you'll be putting all of your employees astray. When you need that specific accountability session, you know, to make sure you're on the right track. So there are two things. One is you could completely ignore that, in which case you will lead yourself astray. But the positive side of it is one should actually seek it because it can really help them. And everyone else.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying about the accountability session. I guess, yeah, I don't really see that in the words.
Could we look at the definition of Tochachah as criticism?
Yeah.
And would that help Ariel at all?
Yeah, because I don't. Can you go back to because what I think what Rifki said kind of like helps me out a little bit. Can you just scroll down because I thought that what her definition was pretty good.
Informing
like, exactly, informing someone that they're making a mistake so that they can correct it. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So then okay. I just got caught up in your statement about like session. You know, the accountability.
The accountability is to make sure you're on the right track and you're correcting your errors.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Right. Okay. So
can I throw something in? Oh.
Yeah. You know. Go ahead. Go throw something in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was gonna look at more of a path to life as a growth mindset. Like someone who sees life as I'm taking things and I'm growing is someone who can effectively take in the Musser and take in the rebuke and as not as a negative, but more as this is what I'm using to grow in my life. And someone who looks at it as, oh, this is negative, this is a criticism towards me, they're just going to throw it away and not look at it towards growth. They're just going to look at it as this is a negative criticism.
Okay. So I'll tell you what I really like about this. Okay. So Shomer Tochachah, Shomer Musser, the way we have it so far, is means that you are like you hear. So it's one level beyond just hearing Musser. You are actually like taking measures to make sure that you figure out how to internalize it and implement it in your life. Make it into a habit. Make sure that you don't slip up. Make sure that etc. But that doesn't have a like. There's no idea of like a mobility or a destination in that idea. That sounds like you're just guarding something, But what Hadassah is adding is that, and we need to build one little bridge. But what Hadassah is adding is path to life does imply like a journey or emotion along something towards an end, So now we've got two quarter ideas. Okay. So can we do this? Can we say what is the difference internally between a person who listens to Musser but doesn't guard it versus someone who guards it, and how would that propel them towards life? Now, Hadassah is saying it's a growth mindset, which is definitely a possibility. But I feel like there's this little step in between. So what is going on what's the difference between the way that the Shomer Musser relates to it versus the Shomea Musser or the Makabel Musser or whatever you want to call that guy? And then how does that lead? How does that put you, like what I'm picturing here is like, those horizontal escalators in the airports that like just, like the moving sidewalks or whatever they call them, So it's like, you could be a Shomer Musser, but then what the pasuk is saying is that being a Shomer Musser puts you onto that moving sidewalk that like carries you forward towards life, So like, what is it that gives you that motion? And totally, Hadassah, if you have this intuition for a growth mentality, like that's good. Like we just have to like see how that comes from the Shomer Musser,
Wait, can you repeat the other shorashim you were using, like in place of Shomer?
Yeah, I don't even know what would be the best thing of Shomea. Like in Mishlei, it uses like when it's personifying Chacham and Musser, it's like it uses Shomea-li, like one who listens to me, or we say being Mikabel Tochachah, of like accepting rebuke, or
right,
or even like those are the two that come to mind right now.
Wait, so can I say something?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just have been getting this idea, like you said, Shomea and like Makabel, right? And when you're like listening to someone receiving something, it's kind of like they're handing it to you, whereas Shomer is more of an active, you are doing it. So I feel like Shomer is more fitting because it's you going after it and holding on to it versus it being given to you.
Okay, good. So that's exactly what I want to elaborate on. So how does that lead you to life? And maybe this would be a good time to define what life is. I don't mean like define life like in the grand philosophical sense, but like in this pasuk here,
Can I offer something very, very half-baked? Like it's not even half-baked.
Sure. Raw cookies can be good also.
Like it's just the ingredients like in the bowl. Right?
Yeah, it's
not even half-baked. Yeah, I'm gonna stop now. It's okay. Maybe like the guarding and like the caring, like what Sarah was saying. Like I feel like that comes from like you care about it and like you understand like the root of it and like how that'll change your life practically.
Okay, good. So definitely the idea of guarding something shows that you care about it. And see, one thing, okay, I'm gonna take a different direction now, okay, just based on what Shiur was the ingredient that broke the camel's back here, because I think, I don't know how many other people have been doing this. I'm thinking now about the second half, because if we get the second half correctly, the second half is gonna be the opposite of this first half, right? So like, let's say, for example, what Shiur said, abandoning Tochachah shows a lack of valuing it, or if you put it in Ariel's framework, then an abandonment of Tochachah would mean that you are not willing to do the upkeep to like stay vigilant and stick to it, or what Sarah said as well, so maybe this is the time now to think about the second half and like play each half off of each other to try to get an idea.
I do have an idea for how the second one relates or qualifies to the first, but
okay, good, go ahead.
But I feel like it's a bit more of a holistic idea. So I don't know if now's the time or get more of the half-baked stuff out now.
No, I think we're ripe for holistic ideas now. I think it's good. Yeah.
I do have like a quarter idea.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right, fine. Sorry, one more chocolate chip. Yeah.
Okay. And this might be me forcing this morning's pasuk into this.
Okay.
But I think maybe when a person is abandoning rebuke, they're not just not following it anymore, but they're trying to like move away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to like try to like get others astray also.
Yeah, so that is the thing that that's been like lingering as well, is mate leads astray. So I'm gonna cheat slightly, not cheat entirely, just to show you who said that exact thing. Oh, Sadigon. So this is kind of not cheating, because we did read Sadigon, but this is Sadigon's commentary, so I'm gonna copy and paste it here. So Sadigon says, excuse me, Kolel, so this is his commentary on the word mate. Kolel es shehu mate atzmo umate zulaso. He says the reason why it uses the word leads astray is because it includes leading yourself astray and leading others astray. And I think that's a minimalist enough interpretation that we can treat it not as like reading Sadigon's whole idea. But yeah, so that's good. I don't know if that fits into what we're saying, but just
okay, yeah, that was just like an observation I had about the leading astray.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right, Zach, you want to say your the whole
sure.
cookie, so to speak? Yeah.
So yeah, I was just thinking that I heard relatively recently about someone's analysis of like the letter vav and like how it's an important qualifier in many sentences in the Torah, like how it shows a connection between events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like, you know, I do think it's significant saying and or but, or, you know, like the connection makes a difference. And so we were talking, or I told you I was going to try to figure out a way that we can have a broad and specific instance combined. And I think I figured out how to do so by looking at the qualifier. Okay. So I think that the first half is kind of how everyone was looking at it so far. It's like, you know, you have this subject of Musser, and the path of life is observing that. And you know, if we use that definition you gave for what that subject is, you know, if you look at, you know, how foolishness leads to bad things, and you look at how, you know, immoral behavior leads to bad things, then that's the study of Musser. And that is the path of life. However, if in a specific instance, if you're one of those people who observes and guards Musser, but in a specific instance, or I'm not one specific instance, but multiple specific instances, a person receives rebuke or criticism, and they reject it as saying, I don't need other people's input. I'm already observing Musser myself, and I don't need someone else's criticism. I don't need your input on the matter. I got this covered myself. So if you abandon rebuke as not being part of the subject of Musser, then you're going to lead your Musser astray, so to speak, in yourself. Like you're going to not be able to succeed in the endeavor of Musser.
Okay. So when you were talking, then it helped me to connect the dot I was trying to connect with what Hadassah was saying. And I want to say that and then compare the two. Okay. And for those who don't know, by the way, I just got to say this because this offers you know, this doesn't have to just be me and Zach. What happens many weeks, by the way, is like Zach will have an idea and then I'll have an idea, and then it'll be slightly different, and then like we'll continuously trade voice messages trying to work out exactly what the differences are for the rest of the week. Okay, so like you know, that's you know, that's an option for anyone as well, also. But so I just want to get both of them out there. Okay. So Hadassah used the term growth mentality, and what I'm thinking here is I wanted to learn the word Musser as a particular instance of rebuke, but what it means to be shomer, if you just hear it as a particular piece of rebuke, like let's say you say, you know, wake up for chakras every morning, and like let's say just through pure willpower, like you just force yourself to do that, you know, so that's not a shomer Musser. A shomer Musser would say, okay, well, why am I like continuously like forgetting to set an alarm, or why do I have a resistance to going to chakras, or why can I make a plan to do something that I enjoy and stick to it to the minute, but when it comes to doing something like this, then not, or why do I have this like religious block? In order to really be shomer Musser and to actually make sure that you follow through with it, you're going to have to examine lots and lots of other aspects of yourself. And if you relate to all instances of Musser this way, then you end up into a situation where you are moving towards life. And maybe I'm now realizing it's exactly the same thing that I don't know if it's the same thing as what Zach is saying, but it ends up, I feel like, in a very similar place. It's just that I'm learning the word Musser to be about a particular instance of rebuke, and you're learning it about the subject. So what do you say about that? Is that what do you think?
Well, I guess maybe I just missed one of the key points, but how is Musser in that sense? Meaning, how is the person observing and abandoning at the same time?
Okay, good question. Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on. Google
or
just,
not necessarily.
Google, my Google responded. I didn't say Google. How's the person observing and abandoning at the same time? What do you mean at the same time?
Not necessarily at the same time, but how are they both observing and abandoning? Meaning the same person.
Oh, so I was not learning it's the same person. I'm learning this is the classic Mishlei style where the first half is the Chacham and the second half is the fool.
Got you. Okay. So maybe that's the difference.
Is that why you said the thing? Oh, okay. Maybe I missed a key step here. Yeah. Remember that in Mishlei there are no buts in Mishlei. Okay. All of the vavs can be translated as either and or but, and you have to like use your intuition.
Yeah, I actually did kind of remember you saying that, and it wasn't saying that it had to be read that way. I was just saying what sparked my thinking.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention that verbally here because I guess I don't know why I typed it, but I just took it for granted that these are clear opposites, you know. So I wasn't thinking along the lines of it being the same person. I mean, it could be the same person in the sense that one person can like make I don't know. Yeah, what were you saying?
Well, I think the way I was reading it is like you have a person who observes Musser, and then they think because they observe Musser, they don't need to take rebuke.
Oh, okay.
And he's saying if you don't take rebuke, then you're not going to be observing Musser. You're going to lead your Musser astray.
Yeah. Okay. So I also had an approach like that. Oh, hold on. It's another very similar one. I didn't talk it out yet though. Let me just try talking it out. If this doesn't make sense, then it doesn't make sense. That that there is a mistake of thinking that you have internalized it prematurely, and then that leads you to abandon it. Meaning that there is a reality to a point where you have internalized something completely and it's automatic. But if you, like this, let's say you start off and you are doing something erroneously, okay, or you're not doing something effectively, and then someone gives you Musser, and you use that Musser as the guideline to get on the right track, and then you think to yourself, well, I heard the idea, and therefore, like, I got this now, and I don't need to like heed that piece of advice anymore, you know? Like, I'll give a dumb example. Like, let's say, for example, someone thinks, starts learning how to drive, okay, and then they follow all the rules and all the guidelines and stuff like that, and then they're like, okay, I got this, like, I don't need to be bound by this anymore, like, I don't need to exactly follow the speed limit, I don't need to like use my turn signals or whatever, and then they don't guard it, and then they abandon it, that's going to lead them astray. But
yeah, that's interesting.
To the point, there is such a thing where you get to the point, I'm not saying in the traffic laws here, maybe we have to use a different example. There is a point where you get to the thing where you've internalized it and you don't need to do every step beforehand.
The thing is that I feel like that might apply more to Musser than rebuke. Meaning, like, if you are really like extremely top level at a certain characteristic, I don't know, let's say anger. Let's say someone has anger issues and they spend 30 years.
An anger expert, yeah, right.
Yeah, and so now they're just like, they never get angry. And then someone comes over to them and says, like, I think you might have like a certain anger issue. They spent 30 years fixing their anger issues,
right?
But yet this person might have noticed something that they didn't work on. So if they say, well, I really got this down pat, no thanks, then they might be missing out on something.
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility for meaning that's a mistake of not heeding new rebuke. Well, I guess what I'm saying, let me give you an example that I think will work for this. Like let's say I said this at the very beginning. I try to get my students into the habit of listing all the questions on Mishlei, because I think the biggest mistake that people make when they first start learning Mishlei is to immediately like just start projecting their own ideas without even like assessing the questions. So there are, now when I learn Mishlei with my chavrusa, who I've learned Mishlei with for like 18 years, we don't list the questions. We'll only talk about a couple questions that hit us, and we won't list it. And the reason why is because we've learned so much Mishlei that like we're doing it automatically anyway, you know? I could foresee a case where a student would think, oh, well, I've learned Mishlei for a year. I don't need to list the questions anymore. And they will abandon that Tochachah and think that they have internalized the habit and move on, when really they haven't. There is a point like that, but they just haven't gotten to there yet, you know?
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's a lot clearer. I did think though that there was another, like I was taking abandonment slightly differently, which actually in a way that might answer Rifki's question from earlier, which is that rebuke isn't always helpful, right? And it's not always correct, and they might not understand the context of your situation. So even if it's good information they're sharing, it might not be applicable, or it might not be time for you to hear it, you know? But I think that the word abandon addresses that, meaning he's not saying a person who doesn't accept everything. He's saying if a person who abandons it, meaning like if you selectively choose, he doesn't say a person who selectively chooses what to listen to and what not to listen to leads astray. He says a person who abandons it leads astray, which is a much,
Wait, sorry.
I actually think,
No, I'm just gonna say, like, are you saying like that it's not just like one instance of like, oh, like it happens to be like in this circumstance that person gave me really bad advice, and like or a rebuke rather, and then but you're saying rather that like it's in general that this person just can't take rebuke from anyone whatsoever.
Yeah, I personally do think he's talking about a series of like specific cases, meaning like I think it's plural, like abandons rebuke, across many cases. But I think it could also be applied to a specific instance, meaning if a person gives rebuke, you don't have to take it all, right? You don't have to reject it all. You could think about it and decide for yourself, like, oh, this makes sense, that didn't make sense, they understood this, that was a good point, and you can dissect what's helpful and what's not. And that can be true across many instances of rebuke as well. And I think that's not what he's saying. He's saying like he's talking about a person who's not trying to separate between good and bad and what's useful and correct in this instance. He's talking about a person who just abandons it all and isn't trying to take the good out of it.
But I think he is talking about that type of person in the first half, and that might be what it means by keeping Musser. Keeping Musser, meaning that let's say someone gives you a rebuke and it's not applicable to your situation right now, or it's not, or like the time is wrong, whatever. So the foolish move would be to just ignore it or neglect it. But the wise move would be, okay, this person has something very useful to say, doesn't apply to me right now, or I can't hear it right now, but I'm going to pocket it away, and like, and view it as valuable. And that, again, maybe it's just because I'm entranced by Hadassah's idea of the growth mentality, but like that's a big part of the growth mentality of realizing that, like, that everything that any criticism that you hear that's pointing out a mistake is a potential mistake that you can make in this area or in another area, and like, and therefore like valuing it because it is Musser, like even if it misfired in this particular case,
Wait, so then if we go by that understanding, I feel like that sounds really similar. I think was it last week? Like that we did a pasuk very recently. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, just about like
the valuing knowledge.
Yeah, like so are you saying like the same thing but with rebuke?
So I see the similarity, but I guess the difference is, that's a good question.
Could it be that it's about a qualifier for a lifestyle, meaning like a person who observes,
which we haven't explained yet. Yeah, go ahead.
Like a person who observes Musser is like, it's kind of like a person who has their eyes on the prize, so to speak, meaning like they have the right values of life and they're trying to, gain as much as they can from it and avoid foolish behavior and immoral behavior. And then they say, but I don't need other people's input. And he's saying like, you can't exist in that with that game plan, meaning like if you're going to be the kind of person who just cuts other people's perspectives out of your picture and says like other people's input and rebuke is totally unnecessary to me, then that's going to end up fracturing your ability to live a life observing Musser.
Okay, let's hold that for 1 second. I still feel like here's where we're at. We're at lots of approaches and I feel like we need to consolidate here because I'm starting to get a little bit lost here. So let's let us, let's move this down for 1 second here. And I don't know if this is gonna be the best move. Maybe it's too ambitious. Can we like get some semblance of a list here in terms of approaches, or is that gonna be too? Is it gonna be like trying to retrace your steps when you're?
No, we could do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, because I feel like we want to get here by the end anyway. Like of just knowing how many approaches we have. Okay, so what do we have here?
Growth mentality.
Growth mentality, right? Yeah. So growth mentality approach. All right, and can we state in a sentence what that is? So I'm gonna try stating the way that I stated it, which I liked, but then maybe Zach's first approach also fit into that. So if you take each piece of Musser and work on everything you need to work on in order to internalize and uphold it, that is a growth mentality that will lead you to a good life. Okay, fine. I know this is not exact. I just want to get it down on paper in some form.
Wait, can I say something that I think adds to that? But I'm not sure if that's what I think it was Hadassah said it that meant. So I've been looking at this the whole time and just thinking. Sorry, can you scroll up to the pasuk for a second? Yeah. I've been looking at it and thinking like maybe this is like a jump here, but like Musser and Tochachah are, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like it's the same kind of idea that you're changing, right? Like when you get Musser and when you get Tochachah, you're changing, right? But the difference is the way that perhaps the person's relating to it, like in terms of the mindset. And I feel like it almost seems to me like the first like Orech L'chaim and then at the end Mata are like reality, and then the four middle words are like perspective, meaning Shomer Musser is one perspective, and then Ozev Tochachah is the other perspective. Because if you are, and there's also no, the way I keep thinking about it is like levels, like Orech L'chaim seems to be going up, and then like Mata seems to be going down, and there's no like middle ground. It's like if you are Shomer Musser and the way you perceive it is like Musser, and like it doesn't, rebuke implies you did something wrong. Musser implies like you're working on it. I feel like.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see. Yeah. So that last point I especially liked because that also might make for a good harmony for why he uses the ambiguous term, meaning he is talking about Musser as a particular rebuke, but you're framing it as Musser as like the study of human behavior in a way that like can avoid mistakes. So that would satisfy Zach also, right? Maybe, I hear that. The part you were saying about reality and perspective, I see what you mean. Let's go ahead and say it. Could we just get specific though? So what is the second half according to this?
You're saying like Ozev Tochachah Mata?
Yeah.
And
that's not just a question for Sarah, a question for anyone,
Oh, okay, fine.
No, you can answer it if you have an answer.
I think so. I understood Ozev Tochachah, but like when it refers to Mata, like I'm not exactly sure to define that.
Can I interject?
Go ahead.
I say if you look at life as it's my way or the highway, like I have this mindset and there's no need to change it because I'm content and I'm set, then you're eventually going to lead yourself astray or lead others astray because you're so set in your ways. And let me scratch that. I'm going to say people who are stubborn and they look at it as my way or the highway are those people who are going to end up falling back because they're not working on themselves and they're just completely content with where they're at.
Okay, so see, that part to me is, while true, that part to me sounds too generic. Like the first half is saying a specific, like nuanced idea, and I feel like the second half, I feel like this is set up in such a symmetrical way that I want to see it like the
completely the opposite. You're saying,
or something. I mean, what you're saying is kind of completely the opposite, but I feel like, see, this is where I'm getting the intuition that the second half is not as much of a chiddush then, and that might just be an intuitive thing. And I feel like the point that Isaac made, and again, this is where we have different intuitions maybe, but like Mata like leads astray, and in fact, like we've seen several Mefarshim say that it means you lead yourself astray or you lead yourself and others. Like just say like he goes astray. Like that's a very, just delete the mem. Toeh, he goes astray. Like why leads himself astray? And you could give small answers to that, which would be fine. Like you say, yeah, because it's his internal thing that is causing him to go astray. But I don't know, something is not.
Are we saying leads astray and leads others astray is interchangeable?
We're saying that the word, okay, the undeniable fact is that the word is causative. It means to lead astray. It might mean only leads yourself astray, or it might mean only leads others, or it might mean both. And I do think it would be weird if in our pasuk it meant leads others astray, because we haven't been talking about others right now, And I feel like if you are going to say it leads others astray, then that would be like, then that would radically change the way that we're doing the whole pasuk, which is fine, but it would be different.
It could also be leading, like it could be on the observation of Musser, like that observation could be led astray, so you're no longer observing.
It leads the observation of Musser. Yeah, you said that something like that earlier. So not
which in reality is the same as leading yourself astray, but it's
okay. Well, let me try that one out. Meaning, we're saying that the pasuk is about shmiras Musser, which is relating to Musser in a way where it fosters a growth mentality, okay? And what this would be saying is if you abandon Tochachah, meaning a particular instance of Tochachah, that's going to jeopardize your ability to relate to Musser that way. Is that what you meant by like leading Musser astray?
Yeah, and we could even say that like if Musser is a topic, then Tochachah could be like a sub branch of Musser, meaning like Musser takes analysis and effort. Like it, let's say you could isolate like 5 aspects of Musser, and Tochachah might be one, and it's the one that takes place outside of yourself. Like it's the one thing that's not just you. And if a person thinks they can do Musser without that one thing and just do it themselves, then it might fracture the whole thing.
Okay, good. Meaning, okay, good. So there are people. Okay, this somewhere it talks. Rabbeinu Yonah has a paragraph on that somewhere, that there are people who are interested in perfecting their behavior and decision making. So it's not like it's not like they think that they're faultless or they can't make mistakes and stuff, but they don't want to be told by anyone else that they're making a mistake. So that's like that. That's like the type of thing we're dealing with here, right? That the person in the second half of the pasuk really is like theoretically he's interested in Musser, but thinks he could do it on his own. And then that's what the pasuk is saying. No. If you abandon rebuke, even if you embrace shmiras Musser, but you abandon rebuke, that will cause your shmiras Musser to go astray.
Yeah.
That's a good. We got one. That's one idea. Okay, good. And I don't know if that's where we started, what we were trying to do, but at least we got one idea. So I just want to get this down. So if you abandon rebuke, i.e., you believe that you can perfect yourself through Musser without listening to anyone else's critiques, then you are leading shmiras Musser astray. Okay, namely, so why won't that work? I mean, obvious question. Why won't that work?
I think it's because part of a person's faults is by definition their blind spots.
Yeah.
And so to say, oh, I'll see my own blind spots isn't going to get you that as far as asking someone else like, oh, what's in my blind spot?
Okay, so that's one approach you could take. You could take that everyone has blind spots, and then you're inevitably going to miss something if you're not open to hearing from others. The other approach is that you want to add to it? Yeah.
Yeah, this might be what you were literally about to say, and I just completely cut you off.
Go ahead.
But, I think also it not only about the blind spots, but on top of that, if you aren't able to accept others' advice about things about you, that inherently already is a fault within you, and you're just exacerbating that fault, and you're never going to fix it if you're just going to be in this vicious cycle of, not listening.
Yeah. And to
It's
like
exactly what I was gonna
apply
say.
that.
Good call.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you said it. Yeah.
To like add another piece to that puzzle that you guys were unpacking there is that's why it's going to unravel your ability to observe Musser, because if you're already in a state of mind that's like, I don't need something, then how could you truly pursue Musser? Meaning there's already a part of your mind that's saying like, I don't need this. So if that's the case, then you're not really opening your mind to improvement.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. This needs to be worked on in terms of the clarity of what I wrote, but my goal is to get it down so that like we can, have it to talk about. Yeah. Okay, good. So that's one approach. And if that's all we get for tonight, then I'm fine. And in fact, what we're going to do is I think this is a good place to, like, as we usually do, officially end this year. But I do want to try to like at least, I know I said I was going to end on time tonight, but clearly I can't control myself. So we're going to officially end for tonight. So those, who are came for an idea, you got an idea. But I want to keep on just trying to get down on paper some of the other approaches we had, just so we have them. So, yeah, okay. What else did we say? What were some of the other approaches that were tossed about? And it's hard now because they've all kind of like melded and blended. And we didn't have, this is a thing where I like the, here the discussion dynamic, at no point, I don't think, did someone say, can I try a completely new approach? This was kind of like an associative discussion, right? Like we went from one to another to another to another. So that's what makes it difficult to retrace our steps.
Yeah, it's all a mush to me now. It's all like one.
But maybe I used to have a policy in when I taught Mishlei, which is debatable, but like I would like to used to only focus on one idea per class, because there is something where when you hear the idea and it emerged in your mind through a natural process, you can take it with you and think about it and internalize it. Whereas let's say I give you 5 approaches, so you get 5 ideas, but you relate to them as like abstract answers as opposed to like meanings of the pasuk, so like there's an advantage to having just one idea that we can just like take with us and chew on.
Did we define? Oh, sorry. Did we define like Orech L'chaim and Mata, like exactly what that means? Because I feel like that shapes everything. In the
so according to
analysis, it says good life. So I feel like
right. I think the way we're taking it here is we're taking it like as the generic good life, meaning a life filled with happiness and such, all the good stuff. Like I don't think we're being specific about it. And then mata, though, we did define, and that's an intrinsic part of the idea, is it leads you astray from the keeping of Musser. This, by the way, really fits with Sadigon's translation. Just to repeat Sadigon's translation here, he said the path of life is the guarding of Musser, but actually it doesn't fit with Sadigon's interpretation, but we can ignore that. But one who abandons rebuke makes it, you don't even have to say makes it go astray. You could just say it goes astray from the guarding of Musser. You don't even have to complicate it. Yeah, it just goes astray from the guarding of Musser.
Which, by the way, also is going astray oneself.
Right.
So I mean,
right. Yeah. Oh, good. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. It makes you go astray from the path of Musser, but then it also just leads you astray in general.
I don't know if it's worth trying to retrace other branches, but I do remember part of where we branched was I was asking, I think, how one can observe in one instance or how like observation and abandonment relate to each other when you were talking about an approach that was similar. I don't have enough though to.
Yeah.
Was it the?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, so that was the we'll come up with a name for it in a second. So if you listen to rebuke, but prematurely stop guarding it, before you've internalized it, then you'll go astray. Right. And this one we didn't really, I don't think we fleshed out what the Orach L'chaim is, and what the Orach L'chaim is. But so let's call this one
creating a regimen.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to put it. I'm just trying to think if there's a word for like. I'm thinking like the analogy I'm getting is like you take the training wheels off too early, but that's not a good analogy. Yeah.
I don't have a name for it, but I feel like this is like very similar to what we see a lot today with like instant gratification, and like how that's just like a very big mentality today that people just assume like, oh, if I study this once and like I'm gonna get this concept and I'm gonna get 100 on this math test. Like no,
right.
Unless you're like a genius, like even so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good
it's like meme quotes. It's like everybody feels like they're like leveled up every time they post a spiritual quote or something.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a good example, right? Because then people feel that the fact that I read it and it registered in my mind is like somehow enough,
Yeah, I feel like it's like a fake Mishlei, because that's exactly what that is.
Yeah, the counterfeit Mishlei. Although, but remember, Mishlei does serve that role also. Like, if you are a person who is staying, let's say imagine a culture in which all the memes were just Mishlei pasukim, so like, even though there in that culture you would have people like mindlessly sharing these things also, there is such a thing as like, of folk wisdom that it gets internalized and like you're not thinking of it in depth. But the potential is there to be able to like for people who are thinkers to unpack it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But did that undermine what we were saying here? Oh, it just undermines it being a broad meaning. So you're talking, when you were saying abandoning it too early, we're talking about a very specific instance, and someone gives specific criticism and you hear it and then you're like, okay, well, I figured that out already, and then you leave it.
Yeah, and I think this is really good in, you can see examples in like skills that I mentioned, but think of like things that are actual Musser. Like, let's say, for example, let's say you have two people who are in a relationship and like they have this horrible fight, and then like they're told by a friend or a counselor or whatever, like, you should have, you should listen to each other. So like they listen to each other once, then they don't take measures to like incorporate that into their dynamic, into the way that their relationship dynamic usually works. So then it's just going to fail, you can't just do it once.
Yeah.
And
then
no, it's like completely not on track.
Well, I was just wondering what there was one before both of these approaches, and I was just trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, I feel like we are missing one also.
So I don't know if I don't think this is what you guys are thinking of, but it's still a little bit bothering me, that other pasuk, because I really do think it was last week's pasuk, pasuk, and also the wording I feel like is similar because it also has l'chaim, and I just feel like the setup.
Ulas tzadik l'chaim, tuas rasha l'chatas.
Yeah.
So the activity of the tzaddik is for life, and the thoughts of the wicked are for sin. So that I remember the idea. Well, I remember one idea that we said is that it's talking about the effects of the tzaddik on the system. But that's not the idea you were thinking of.
No, because it's not the idea I was thinking of. Now I really have to go back.
I thought the idea that I thought was similar to what I was saying is this one is on the lips of the wise person is found. Lips of the understanding person is found wisdom. And I gave one interpretation for that they value all information that they get, because any piece of information is valuable, just might not be at this time, but they have this eagerness. A Navon has this eagerness to relish and
store the information.
Store up the information. Yeah, exactly. And then Shavit Legev Chasar Lev. How do we interpret that in that context? I think it was that. Yeah, I don't remember anymore.
Wait,
we did interpret this as rebuke also.
It was like the back pasuk, right?
What?
Was this the pasuk that Zach was talking about before with like the back?
This is the back, yeah. That was the rebuke pasuk.
I think this.
And I remember the rebuke interpretation we had of this was that it's two. We ended up saying it's two ways to deliver rebuke. Is if you're delivering rebuke, you will deliver it in a manner that feels like you're just objectively putting knowledge out there. Whereas if you are not sensitive to the person you're listening to, then you'll do it in a way that comes across as a personal criticism.
So would you say that like that pasuk, or at least the second half of that pasuk, is really about like the distribution, that's a weird way of putting it, but of rebuke, and then this one is more about like just rebuke in general and how we're supposed to look at it?
Yeah, yeah. We definitely learned that it was about communication.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Conveyanceness is the word you're looking for. No, I'm just kidding. That's not a word. Yeah. Okay. I think I know there is one that we're forgetting, but I think I've reached my
what about the accountability session? I like that one. Come on, we have to use that one.
Hold on.
Fine. I won't make you do it.
Accountability session. What Ariel says. Yeah, no. No, so what was the idea then?
What was the idea?
The first half I had clearer than the second half for the accountability session one. Is keeping it going, right? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, is that that is the one that led to the growth mentality one, right? So it's that it's not enough to listen to rebuke, but you need to work out ways to uphold it. That was the first raw idea that we had for the first half. But then what was the I don't remember what we said for the second half.
That you should, the second half is that you should seek it out. But there was another way that I said that. Hold on a minute.
Well, you say you should seek it out. I did not have a hard time understanding what you were saying. I just had a hard time seeing it in the pasuk.
Well, yeah, I know I'm saying it in a positive way, but there is a way to say it in the negative form, like the second half of the pasuk is like.
You know what? I think I am. I've reached my peak for tonight. So I'm really, really tired. Ariel, offer stands. You can totally voice message me or tell me in yeshiva tomorrow. Okay.
I will. Yeah.
If anyone else has further thoughts, that goes for everyone. Okay. You know, no reason why we can't learn Mishlei all week. You know, even if we haven't had a shiur all week. Okay. So that was good. We got some good ideas there, and okay. I guess.
Thank you.
Next week. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.